My name is Eleanor Gray. I am 32 years old, and I killed my husband. I don't say those words lightly. They are the truth, stripped of excuses. When people hear that sentence, they usually recoil. Their eyes widen, their lips part, and their questions tumble out in whispers. Why, how, what kind of woman does such a thing? I'll tell you. But to understand why I ended Richard's life, you have to understand what life with him was like. When I met Richard, I thought I had stumbled into a fairy tale. He was magnetic. His presence filled every room he entered, as if the world bent toward him. He had this self-assured smile, the kind that made you feel safe and desired all at once. He was everything I thought I wanted: successful, handsome, charming. I was 24 then, a schoolteacher with modest dreams. He was 35, already a respected businessman, with a countryside home and a reputation that made people treat him like royalty. When he looked at me across that art gallery in London, I swear my knees went weak. He pursued me with an intensity that was intoxicating. Flowers at my door, surprise dinners, late-night phone calls filled with laughter. He made me feel like I was the only woman in the world who mattered. And when he proposed, whispering forever, "It will always be us," I believed him. Our wedding was perfect. My family adored him. Friends told me I was lucky. And for the first year, I thought they were right. Richard was attentive, generous, romantic. We traveled to Paris, Venice, the Greek islands. He held my hand, kissed my forehead, and told me I was his everything. But fairy tales don't last. The first signs were subtle. "You laugh too loud, Eleanor," he said once at a dinner party. "It makes you look foolish." I laughed it off at first. But he said it again, and again, until one day I found myself covering my mouth when I laughed, ashamed of something that had once come naturally to me. Then came the clothing. He told me which dresses were respectable and which made me look cheap. He wanted my hair longer, my makeup lighter. He framed it as, "Love, I just want you to look your best, darling." But slowly, I realized he was molding me into someone else. He didn't want me working anymore. "Why should you tire yourself in a classroom when I can provide everything?" he said. At first, it sounded sweet, protective even. But within months, I was at home, alone, my world shrinking to the size of our walls. My friends stopped calling. My colleagues forgot me. And when I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back. Richard never hit me. Not once. He didn't need to. His weapon was his words. "You're nothing without me. No one else would ever want you. You should be grateful. I saved you from a boring little life." Each sentence chipped away at me, carving me into a smaller version of myself. There were good days, of course, days when he brought me flowers or kissed me passionately in the kitchen. Those days confused me most. They made me wonder if maybe I was the problem, if maybe I wasn't trying hard enough to be the perfect wife. But deep down, I knew better. The truth revealed itself in scraps. A lipstick stain on his shirt collar. A late-night phone call cut short when I entered the room. A hotel receipt tucked into his jacket pocket. When I confronted him, he laughed in my face. "Don't be pathetic, Eleanor. You're imagining things. But I knew. God, I knew. And yet, I stayed. Fear is a powerful chain. I had given up my career, my friends, my independence. Richard was all I had left. Until the night of our anniversary. He booked a table at one of London's finest restaurants. I wore the red dress he liked, the one he called classy enough for public. I smiled. I tried, as always, to play the perfect wife. Halfway through the evening, after too much wine, he leaned toward me. "Do you ever stop talking God, Eleanor? You're boring." The words cut deep. But what made it worse was the laughter from the next table, strangers amused at my humiliation. I smiled through it. I always did. But something inside me cracked that night. When we got home, I lay in bed beside him while he snored. My eyes stared at the ceiling, and a thought whispered in my mind, what if he wasn't here anymore? The thought terrified me. But it also thrilled me. In the days that followed, I became an actress. Smiling, cooking his favorite meals, nodding at his every word. He thought I was devoted. But behind the mask, I was planning. I researched obsessively. I watched crime documentaries. I read about poison substances that mimicked heart failure, that dissolved in red wine without a trace. I studied mistakes others had made and vowed not to repeat them. I began gathering supplies. Rat poison under the pretense of a garden problem. Gloves, cleaning products, mundane items that raised no suspicion. Each purchase felt like a rehearsal for freedom. I even rehearsed my performance. I stood in front of the mirror, practicing tears, gasps, the frantic wife discovering her husband's collapse. I perfected every detail. It was a stormy evening when it happened. Rain lashed against the windows, thunder rolled through the sky. Richard sat in his armchair by the fire, swirling a glass of merlot. He looked at me with that smug smile, unaware that death was resting in his drink. My hands trembled as I poured the wine. I had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times, but my heart raced as though it might break free from my chest. Still, I smiled. I always smiled. He raised the glass, took a sip, then another. "Perfect," he murmured, savoring the taste. Minutes later, he coughed. Then again, harsher. He clutched his chest, confusion flickering in his piercing blue eyes. Eleanor!" he gasped. I stood frozen, watching. For once, I wasn't the weak one. For once, he was the one powerless. He stumbled, collapsed to the floor, his breaths ragged. His eyes locked on mine, pleading, desperate. I didn't move. I didn't scream. I simply whispered, "Forever is over, Richard." And just like that, my husband was dead. I stared at his lifeless body for what felt like hours, though it was only minutes. My chest rose and fell in steady rhythm. No panic. No regret. Just silence. I moved carefully. I wiped the glass, cleaned the counter, disposed of the empty packet hidden deep in the trash. I rehearsed these motions so many times that they felt almost mechanical. Then, at the right moment, I dialed emergency services. "My husband. Please help." He's collapsed. I think it's his heart. My voice cracked, my sobs echoed. It was a performance worthy of an award. When the paramedics arrived, I played the grieving wife to perfection. They tried reviving him, but of course, it was too late. They told me it looked like sudden cardiac arrest. I collapsed in tears, whispering his name. No one suspected a thing. That night, as I lay in bed alone, I whispered to myself, "You're free, Eleanor. You're finally free." But freedom is never that simple. Freedom. That's what I thought I had earned the night Richard died. I remember lying in bed alone, staring at the ceiling, whispering, "You're free now, Eleanor. You're finally free." But freedom has a strange taste. It's not sweet. It's bitter. Bitter like the wine I poured into his glass. Bitter like guilt that creeps in when the house is too quiet. For the first few days, I lived in a haze of performance. Visitors came and went, the neighbors, my mother, Richard's business partners. Everyone called me brave, strong, heartbroken. I played the role of grieving widow so well that sometimes even I believed it. The funeral was lavish, as Richard would have wanted. White roses, polished oak, men in black suits murmuring words of respect. I stood by his coffin with a trembling hand pressed to my chest, whispering goodbyes that were lies. And yet, even as the earth covered him, a thought whispered in my mind, "It's over. He's gone. You did it." But death has ripples. And those ripples were coming for me. The police came, of course. They always do. A sudden death in a man so young it demanded investigation. Detective Inspector Harris was the first. A tall, quiet man with eyes that seemed to notice everything. He sat across from me in our living room, notebook in hand. "I'm sorry for your loss, Mrs. Gray," he said. "I just have a few routine questions." I clutched a tissue, dabbing my eyes. "Of course, Inspector. Anything to help. What was your husband's health like recently?" He seemed fine," I stammered. "He complained of chest pain once or twice, but he refused to see a doctor. He was stubborn like that. And the night he died." I recounted the story I had rehearsed. The wine, the sudden collapse, my frantic call for help. My voice broke in all the right places. My tears fell on cue. He nodded, scribbling notes. "Paramedics believe it was cardiac arrest. Still, we'll order a toxicology report. Purely standard procedure." My stomach clenched. Toxicology. I hadn't expected that. But I forced a smile. "Of course. I understand." When he left, I locked the door, pressed my back against it, and felt my knees shake. I had planned everything. Everything. But could I have overlooked something? Days turned into weeks. The house felt like a tomb. Richard's clothes still hung in the wardrobe, his cologne still lingered in the air. Sometimes I thought I heard his footsteps in the hall, his voice calling my name. Guilt is a cruel companion. It whispers when the world is silent. And yet, part of me felt lighter. I no longer flinched at slammed doors. I no longer feared his biting words. I could breathe without asking permission. Friends started calling again. My mother visited more often. People pitied me, wrapped me in sympathy. But none of them knew the truth that their fragile Eleanor was capable of murder. Weeks later, Inspector Harris returned. This time, his questions were sharper. The toxicology report came back, he said. His voice was calm, but his eyes pinned me in place. Traces of anticoagulant were found in your husband's system. Rat poison, to be precise. My heart thundered, but my face remained the mask I had perfected. Rat poison, that's impossible. We had some in the shed for the garden, but Richard would never. I let my voice trail off, trembling. He leaned forward. Mrs. Gray, do you know how it might have gotten into his body? Tears blurred my vision, real tears this time, born of terror. No. Oh God, no. Are you saying someone poisoned him? His gaze didn't waver. We're just exploring all possibilities. When he left, I collapsed onto the sofa, clutching a pillow to my chest. My mind spun. Had I made a mistake? Had I left something behind? It was 2 days later when the truth unraveled. I was in Richard's study, sorting through his papers for the solicitor. That's when I noticed a small black device hidden behind a stack of books. A camera. My breath caught. I searched the room frantically. Another in the lamp. Another near the fireplace. Cameras. Everywhere. Richard had been watching me. Recording me. Even after death, he had found a way to control me. I played back the footage. There I was, in our living room, pouring the wine. My hands shaking. My lips whispering, "Forever is over, Richard." The blood drained from my face. The evidence was undeniable. I destroyed the memory card, smashed it to pieces, burned it in the fireplace. But paranoia gnawed at me. What if there were backups? What if the police found others? It happened on a Tuesday morning. I was making tea when the knock came. When I opened the door, Inspector Harris stood there with 2 officers. "Eleanor Gray, you are under arrest for the murder of your husband, Richard Gray." The world tilted. My cup shattered on the floor. The neighbors watched as they led me away in handcuffs, their eyes wide with horror. At the station, Harris laid out the evidence. "The cameras Richard installed throughout your home recorded everything. We recovered the footage from his cloud storage. We saw you prepare the wine. We heard your words." I said nothing. What could I say? The truth was there, in pixels and sound. The courtroom was a theater, and I was the unwilling star. The prosecution painted me as a cold-blooded killer, a woman who plotted for weeks to rid herself of an inconvenient husband. They showed the footage. The jury watched me pour poison with steady hands. They listened as I whispered my damning farewell. My lawyer tried to argue emotional abuse, manipulation, years of control that drove me to desperation. But the jury only saw the video. And the video did not lie. The verdict was swift. Guilty. And so here I am, telling you my story from a prison cell. The walls are gray, the bed is hard, the air smells of disinfectant and despair. This is my new forever. Sometimes I wonder if I regret it. Do I wish I hadn't killed him? The truth is complicated. Richard had already killed me, piece by piece, long before I ended his life. He killed my laughter, my independence, my joy. He left me hollow. All I did was finish what he started. But the law doesn't see it that way. The law sees a murderer. I don't know how history will remember me. Perhaps as a villain. Perhaps as a cautionary tale. But if you've listened this far, I hope you understand. I am not a monster. I am a woman who broke under the weight of her cage. And I am Eleanor Gray. The woman who killed her husband. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment and share. More emotional and inspiring stories are coming soon.